The massive holographic projection of Supreme Commander Vexthor filled the United Earth Council chamber, his crystalline form radiating an otherworldly glow. The council members sat in perfect stillness, their faces illuminated by the harsh light of the alien transmission. Head diplomat Sarah Chen remained seated at her desk, one eyebrow slightly raised as she studied the being who had just demanded Earth's unconditional surrender. You have 24 Earth hours to submit to Zarkari rule. Vexthor's harmonics resonated through the chamber. Your species has been observed for centuries. You waste resources on entertainment, your governments squabble among themselves, and your technology is primitive by galactic standards. The Federation requires your world's resources, and we will have them, with or without your cooperation. Sarah took a slow sip from her coffee mug, setting it down with deliberate care. The movement drew Vexthor's compound eyes to her, their faceted surface reflecting multiple images of her calm demeanor. Supreme Commander, she said, her voice carrying the same tone one might use to discuss weather. I have a question, if you'll indulge me. In your centuries of observation, did you ever wonder why humans seem to smile when we're afraid? The crystalline being's surface rippled in what might have been confusion. Your species' emotional responses are irrelevant to this discussion. Oh, but they're not. Sarah stood, smoothing her charcoal suit. You see, humans have this fascinating quality. When we're truly terrified, we often laugh. When we're backed into a corner, we make jokes. And when someone threatens everything we hold dear. She smiled, bright and sharp. We get creative. The council chamber's lights dimmed slightly, and hidden holographic projectors activated, displaying Earth's orbital defense grid. Thousands of satellites previously masked as debris revealed their true nature, their weapon systems coming online with synchronized precision. We've known about your observation posts for decades, Sarah continued, walking around her desk. Did you really think those catastrophic reactor failures in your listening posts were accidents? We wanted to see how you'd react. Every time you replaced them, we learned more about your technology. Every transmission you sent gave us insight into your encryption. You've been teaching us about yourselves for years, and you never even knew it. Vexthor's crystalline form pulsed with rapidly shifting colors. Impossible. Your species barely has functional spaceflight. Your weapons are primitive projectiles and chemical explosives. Sarah laughed, the sound echoing through the chamber. Supreme Commander, let me share something about humanity that you seem to have missed in all your watching. We're descendants of ambush predators. We didn't become Earth's dominant species by being the strongest or fastest. We got here by being clever, by watching, waiting, and choosing the perfect moment to strike. She gestured to the orbital display, where more hidden installations were revealing themselves. Those primitive chemical rockets, decoys, those wasteful entertainment broadcasts, encoded military communications, those squabbling governments, a carefully choreographed dance to keep you underestimating us. You're bluffing. Vexthor's harmonics wavered slightly. Our scans show. Your scans show exactly what we wanted them to show. Sarah interrupted. Now I have a counteroffer for you, Supreme Commander. You have 24 hours to withdraw your forces from our solar system. After that, we'll demonstrate exactly why humans smile when we're afraid. And trust me, she lifted her coffee mug in a mock toast. You won't find it funny at all. The crystalline being's form stabilized, its surface hardening into sharp angles. You dare threaten the Zarkari Federation. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. And how many of those worlds played dead until you got close enough to strike? Sarah's smile never wavered. 24 hours, Supreme Commander. We'll be watching. We're very good at watching. A holographic projection flickered and died as Vexthor cut the transmission. In the sudden silence of the council chamber, someone started to laugh. Soon others joined in, the sound building until it filled the room with its peculiar mix of humor and tension. Sarah returned to her seat, her expression thoughtful as she studied the orbital display. Admiral Hayes, she called out to a stern-faced woman in the back row. Are the Artemis platforms ready? Armed and awaiting coordinates. Hayes responded, her tablet displaying real-time tracking data of the Zarkari fleet. Though I doubt they'll wait the full 24 hours before attacking. Of course they won't, Sarah agreed, her fingers drumming lightly on her desk. They're too proud, too convinced of their superiority. They'll attack within 12 hours, trying to catch us off guard. She turned to address the council. Ladies and gentlemen, I suggest we give them exactly what they're expecting, right up until the moment we don't. As the council members filed out to their respective command posts, Sarah remained seated, watching the tactical display track the movements of the Zarkari fleet. They were already repositioning for attack, exactly as predicted. She allowed herself a small, genuine smile. The Zarkari had spent centuries watching humanity, but they had never truly seen them. They had mistaken humanity's greatest strength, its adaptability, for weakness. They had interpreted humanity's ability to find humor in darkness as a sign of primitive thinking, rather than psychological resilience. Most critically, they had failed to understand that humans were at their most dangerous when they appeared to be at their weakest. The next 24 hours would correct that oversight, permanently. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood aboard the bridge of the Crystalline Dominance, his flagship's neural interface feeding him real-time data from across the Zarkari battle fleet. 10,000 ships hung in the void beyond Jupiter's orbit, their crystalline hulls refracting starlight in dazzling patterns. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, capable of reducing entire continents to ash. The humans are making no attempt to conceal their orbital installations, his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Ixera, reported. Her crystalline form shimmered with patterns of tactical analysis. Their primitive weapons remain pointed at our fleet. It appears their diplomats' threats were merely bravado. As expected, Vexthor resonated, his harmonic frequencies carrying notes of contempt. Launch the first wave. Let us show them true power. 1,000 ships accelerated toward Earth, their crystalline drives leaving trails of quantum distortion in their wake. The humans' orbital defense grid tracked their approach, but made no move to engage. Vexthor watched through multiple sensor feeds as his ships entered weapons range. First wave, commence firing, he ordered. Target their orbital platforms. Energy lanced out from the Zarkari ships, beams of concentrated power that could slice through planetary crusts. They struck Earth's orbital defenses and passed through them harmlessly. Commander, Ixera's harmonics pitched high with alarm. The platforms. They're holograms. Before Vexthor could respond, space itself seemed to ripple around his ships. Hidden quantum sensors suddenly detected hundreds of small objects emerging from what had appeared to be debris. Each object was barely larger than a human vehicle, but the energy readings they emitted caused Vexthor's crystalline structure to vibrate with concern. Evasive action, he commanded, but it was too late. The objects, human drones, he realized with shock, released pulses of precisely modulated energy. Where the pulses struck Zarkari ships, the crystalline hulls began to resonate at their fundamental frequency. Cracks appeared, spreading like lightning across their surfaces. Impossible, Vexthor whispered as he watched 30 ships shatter simultaneously, their crystalline structures falling apart at the molecular level. They couldn't have known our resonant frequencies. They couldn't. Commander, Ixera interrupted. New contacts emerging from Earth's moon. What had appeared to be lunar craters were opening, revealing launch bays that had been hidden from orbital observation. Sleek black ships emerge, their hulls absorbing both light and scanning beams. They moved with impossible grace, their drives leaving no energy signature that Zarkari sensors could detect. In the United Earth Defense Command, Sarah Chen stood beside Admiral Hayes, watching the battle unfold on a three-dimensional tactical display. Right on schedule, she noted, checking her watch. They didn't even wait 6 hours. Hayes nodded, her fingers dancing across her command interface. Arrogance makes for poor strategy. Lunar fleet is engaging now. Would you like to do the honors? Sarah stepped forward, activating the command channel. This is Earth Command to all vessels. Execute Operation Mockingbird. The black ships began to move in complex patterns, herding the Zarkari vessels like sheepdogs corralling a flock. Where the crystalline ships tried to retreat, they found their quantum drives failing to engage. Where they tried to fight, their weapons passed harmlessly through projected images, while real attacks came from unexpected directions. A message from Earth Command. X-Era reported, her harmonics trembling. Text only. It reads, "Having fun yet?" Vexthor's form pulsed with rage. Launch the second wave. All ships, advance. We will not be humiliated by primitives. Sir, X-Era's crystalline surface had dulled with fear. Look at the lunar surface. The moon's regolith was shifting, billions of particles rising into space. As Vexthor watched, the particles began to organize themselves into a colossal image. A simple human smile, visible from orbit. In Earth Command, Sarah sipped her coffee as she watched the Zarkari fleet's formation collapse into chaos. "Admiral, are we broadcasting on their command frequency yet?" "Just came online," Hayes confirmed with a grim smile. "Excellent." Sarah cleared her throat. "Supreme Commander Vexthor, I believe I mentioned something about humans smiling when we're afraid. The thing is, we're not afraid right now, but you should be." The lunar dust rearranged itself, forming words in Zarkari script. "Seek and demonstration beginning now." What had appeared to be simple communication satellites around Earth's equator suddenly linked together, forming a ring of energy that pulsed with otherworldly power. The Zarkari fleet's quantum sensors screamed warnings as space itself began to warp. "Full retreat," Vexthor commanded, his harmonics shattering with panic. "All ships, disengage immediately." But as his fleet tried to flee, they discovered that the humans' technology wasn't just matching Zarkari capabilities, it was surpassing them. The crystalline ships found themselves caught in a quantum net, their much-vaunted drives unable to break free from Earth's new defensive perimeter. "You spent centuries watching us." Sarah's voice came through clearly on all Zarkari frequencies. "Did you ever wonder if we were watching you back? Learning. Adapting. Your crystalline technology is impressive, but did you know that Earth's silicon chip industry was a cover for quantum crystalline research? Those entertainment broadcasts you dismissed. Test patterns for quantum entanglement communication." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "You could have come in peace. We would have shared our advances, worked together. Instead, you chose intimidation. Remember this moment, Supreme Commander. Remember what happened when you mistook humanity's creativity for weakness, our joy for foolishness, our patience for primitiveness." The quantum ring pulsed once more, and 200 more Zarkari ships discovered that crystalline structures, when properly energized, could be reformed into entirely new configurations. Their weapons transformed into navigation arrays. Their quantum drives reorganized into communication systems. "Consider this a demonstration," Sarah concluded. "You have 18 hours remaining in your original deadline. I suggest you use them wisely." In the quantum-shielded war room beneath Geneva, Sarah Chen studied the holographic representation of the solar system, now lit up with the signatures of both human and Zarkari forces. Beside her, Admiral Hayes was coordinating with the lunar defense grid, her hands moving through the holographic controls with practiced precision. "Quantum signatures from the outer system," Hayes reported. "The rest of their fleet is finally making their move." Sarah nodded, unsurprised. Wounded pride is a predictable motivator. "They're coming to save face." She tapped a section of the display, zooming in on the approaching Zarkari reinforcements. "Time to show them why that's a mistake. Initiate Protocol Prometheus." Throughout the solar system, disguised human installations began to awaken. What the Zarkari had dismissed as simple mining operations on Mars, Europa, and Titan revealed themselves as massive military installations. The ice fields of Saturn's rings shimmered as thousands of stealth platforms shed their camouflage. On the bridge of the crystalline dominance, Vexthor watched in growing horror as his tactical display updated with the new threats. "Impossible," he whispered, his crystalline form vibrating with stress fractures. "Their influence cannot extend this far into the system." "Commander," Ixera's voice carried undertones of resignation, "we're detecting quantum entanglement signatures from every major body in the solar system. They're all linked. They've turned the entire system into a defensive grid." As if to confirm her words, the space around the approaching Zarkari reinforcements began to distort. The humans had not just developed quantum technology, they had mastered it on a scale that the Zarkari had never imagined possible. The very fabric of space-time was being manipulated with surgical precision. In Earth Command, Sarah opened a channel to the Zarkari fleet. "I believe this is the part where we demonstrate why humans are considered an apex predator on our world. We didn't evolve to be the strongest or fastest. We evolved to be the most adaptable, the most innovative, and when necessary, the most ruthless." She nodded to Hayes, who activated the next phase of their defense. The quantum grid surrounding Earth pulsed, sending ripples of energy through the solar system. Each pulse was precisely calibrated to interact with the crystalline structure of Zarkari ships in unique ways. Some found their weapons systems transforming into communication arrays. Others discovered their quantum drives reverting to basic propulsion systems. "You see," Sarah continued, her voice carrying the calm certainty of someone holding all the cards, "while you watched us launch primitive rockets and satellites, we were actually testing quantum field generators. Those failed launches you monitored, successful deployments of stealth technology. Every time you thought you were observing our weaknesses, you were witnessing our strength." Vexthor's command ship shuddered as another wave of quantum manipulation washed over his fleet. "How?" he demanded, broadcasting on all frequencies. "How did you hide this level of advancement?" Sarah's laugh echoed through the command channel. "Supreme Commander, did you ever wonder why humans are so obsessed with science fiction? Why we spend so much time imagining future technologies and possible threats from space? We weren't just entertaining ourselves. We were preparing. Every movie, every book, every game was a thought experiment, a simulation of possible encounters. We turned imagination into innovation." As she spoke, the hidden installations across the solar system began to coordinate their efforts. The ice fields of Saturn's rings transformed into a massive quantum lens, focusing and redirecting energy in ways that defied conventional physics. The subsurface oceans of Europa pulsed with power, generating quantum fields that could reshape matter at its most fundamental level. "But our greatest achievement," Sarah continued, learning to hide in plain sight. "You thought our quantum technology was in its infancy because that's what we wanted you to think. The truth, we mastered it decades ago. Those primitive silicon chips we kept manufacturing. Quantum processors in disguise. Our apparently clumsy attempts at fusion power. Quantum energy containment tests. The remaining Zarkari ships found themselves herded into a containment field between Mars and Jupiter. Their once mighty weapons were useless, their advanced drives neutralized by human technology that had evolved far beyond their understanding. Now, Sarah's voice carried a note of finality. "You have a choice. You can continue this fight, forcing us to demonstrate just how creative humans can be when we're truly threatened. Or you can accept that your assessment of humanity was fundamentally flawed, and we can discuss terms for a peaceful resolution." She paused, letting the silence stretch meaningfully. "Oh, and Supreme Commander, you might want to consider why we're called human beings and not human doings. All that time you spent watching what we were doing, you never once considered what we were becoming." The quantum grid pulsed one final time, and every Zarkari ship in the solar system found their quantum cores simultaneously reconfigured. They still functioned, but now they could only operate within parameters set by human control systems. "Your time for choosing is limited," Sarah concluded. "Unlike your crystalline forms, human patience isn't infinite. Though I must admit, After centuries of preparing for this moment, what's another few hours between future friends? The silence that followed was broken only by the subtle hum of quantum fields reshaping the battlefield, and the quiet laughter of human operators watching their plans unfold exactly as designed. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood motionless on his bridge, his crystalline form dulled with the weight of comprehension. Around him, the tactical displays showed the full extent of humanity's control over his fleet. Every ship contained within fields of quantum energy that bent space itself to human will. But it wasn't the technological superiority that truly shook him. It was the dawning realization of just how completely his civilization had been outmaneuvered. "Display historical observation data," he commanded, his harmonics subdued. All Earth monitoring records for the past century. The records flickered to life around him, and for the first time, he began to see them through new eyes. What had seemed like primitive satellite launches now revealed themselves as carefully orchestrated tests of quantum technology. Failed rockets that his people had laughed at had been deliberate demonstrations, each failure precisely calculated to conceal its true purpose. "Sub-Commander," he resonated softly, "analyze their entertainment broadcasts from the past 50 years. Focus on their science fiction content." Ixera complied, her own crystalline form pulsing with growing distress as patterns emerged. "Commander, they weren't just telling stories. They were conducting thought experiments, publicly workshopping defensive strategies, theorizing potential alien technologies." She paused, her harmonics trembling. They were planning responses to every possible first contact scenario, including hostile ones, while making it look like mere entertainment. Vexthor completed the thought, so no one would take it seriously. A communication request chimed through the ship's systems. Sarah Chen's holographic form appeared on the bridge, her relaxed posture a sharp contrast to the tension pervading the crystalline vessel. "Having some revelations, Supreme Commander?" she asked, that now familiar slight smile playing at her lips. "I thought you might appreciate a fuller explanation of what you're actually seeing." With a gesture, she brought up a new holographic display. "This is a quantum encryption key we developed 30 years ago. Look familiar? It should. Your ships use an almost identical system. We reverse-engineered it from your own transmissions, then developed countermeasures before you even knew we could detect them." The display shifted, showing Earth's apparent technological progression alongside its actual developments. The gap between perception and reality was staggering. "You see," Sarah continued, "humans have a saying. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. We took that to heart. We convinced the galaxy we were primitive because that was our best defense. Every public failure was a private success. Every apparent weakness concealed a strength." In Earth Command, Admiral Hayes watched the exchange with quiet satisfaction. The quantum grid hummed around the solar system, holding the Zarkari fleet in its invisible grasp. On her tactical display, she could see the status of humanity's true defensive network. Artificial quantum intelligences running calculations through crystalline processors that made Zarkari technology look primitive by comparison. "But why?" Vexthor asked, his harmonics carrying genuine confusion. "Why expend so much effort to appear weak?" "Because," Sarah replied, "we learned from our own history. Every time a technologically superior civilization encountered a seemingly primitive one on Earth, it ended badly for the less advanced society. So when we detected your first probes centuries ago, we made a decision. We would advance in secret, testing our developments against your technology, always staying one step ahead while appearing to be 10 steps behind." She gestured, and the holographic display showed centuries of careful preparation. Hidden bases constructed throughout the solar system under the guise of mining operations. Quantum research conducted under the cover of failed particle physics experiments. Military exercises disguised as space debris cleanup operations. The Silicon Age you thought we were stuck in. A cover for quantum crystalline computing. Those crude fission reactors. Containment testing for quantum power systems. Even our conflicts among ourselves served a purpose. They convinced watching eyes that we were too divided to pose a real threat. Vexthor's form pulsed with the impact of understanding. The primitives we thought we were subjugating were never primitive at all, Sarah completed. We were the apex predators of our world, not because we were the strongest, but because we were the most patient. We could track prey for days, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. We applied that same patience on a civilizational scale. She paused, letting her words sink in. Your invasion fleet wasn't entering a primitive system ripe for conquest. You were walking into a carefully prepared trap centuries in the making. Every piece of technology you brought to bear against us had already been studied, understood, and surpassed. Around the crystalline dominance, the quantum grid shifted, allowing the Zarkari ships to see more of humanity's true capabilities. Space stations that had appeared to be crude habitats revealed themselves as advanced quantum research facilities. Asteroid mining operations transformed into military installations that could reshape reality itself. I have to admit, Sarah added, almost conversationally, there were times we worried we might be overdoing it with the deception. But your people's certainty of their own superiority made you blind to the possibility that the primitives you were watching might be watching back. Learning, adapting, and preparing. Vexthor's crystalline form resonated with the frequency of deep realization. The humans hadn't just outmaneuvered them technologically, they had achieved a level of strategic planning and patience that his people had never imagined possible. The seeming primitives had orchestrated a centuries-long deception that had culminated in this moment of total vulnerability for the mighty Zarkari fleet. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so silent. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood before the assembled representatives of 1,000 species, his crystalline form stripped of its usual commanding presence. Beside him, Sarah Chen appeared remarkably small in comparison, yet she commanded the room's attention with an easy confidence that spoke volumes. The Zarkari Empire. Vexthor's harmonics resonated through the chamber, formally withdraws all claims against Earth and the Sol system. Furthermore, we acknowledge that we have significantly underestimated humanity's capabilities and development. Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. The mighty Zarkari, admitting error. Many of the older species shifted uncomfortably, their own observation posts around Earth suddenly seeming less secure. Sarah stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. Humanity accepts the Zarkari withdrawal and offers, in return, an opportunity for collaboration. After all, she smiled, that same knowing smile that had unsettled Vexthor days before. We've learned quite a bit from studying your technology over the centuries. Perhaps it's time we shared what we've learned. The council erupted in a chaos of questions and demands. How long had humans possessed advanced quantum technology? Why had they hidden their true capabilities? What else were they concealing? Sarah raised a hand, and the chamber fell silent, a testament to how quickly perceptions had shifted. Let me tell you a story about humanity's first steps into space. When we looked up at the stars, we saw infinite possibility and infinite risk. We discovered the Zarkari observation posts early in our development, and we made a choice. Instead of announcing ourselves, we watched. We learned. We adapted. She gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing Earth's true technological timeline. Every apparent setback was a calculated move. Every seeming limitation was a carefully constructed facade. We developed in secret, testing our advances against the benchmark of Zarkari technology, always staying one step ahead while appearing to be far behind. Vexthor's form pulsed with what might have been admiration. They turned their greatest perceived weakness, their divisions, their apparent technological backwardness, into their greatest strength. While we watched them launch chemical rockets, they were perfecting quantum drive technology. While we monitored their primitive computer networks, they were developing systems that could reshape reality itself. But why reveal yourselves now? Asked the Galactic Council's prime speaker, their bioluminescent form flickering with curiosity. Sarah's expression grew serious. Because the galaxy is changing. We've detected threats far beyond our borders that will require cooperation, not conquest, to address. The Zarkari's attempted invasion simply accelerated our timeline for revelation. She turned to face the assembled delegates directly. Humanity is extending an offer to all species represented here. We propose sharing our advancements, working together to face the challenges ahead. But understand this. Her voice took on an edge of steel. We extend this offer as equals, not as subjects or subordinates. The quantum display shifted, showing the true extent of human development throughout their solar system. Hidden bases that could reshape matter at the quantum level. Defense systems that could redirect the fundamental forces of reality. Technology that had evolved far beyond mere crystalline computing. The age of deception is over, Sarah declared. Now begins the age of collaboration. But remember, she smiled again, and this time there was genuine warmth in it. If you ever again mistake our creativity for weakness, our adaptability for primitiveness, or our patience for vulnerability, remember these past few days. Remember what happened when the mighty Zarkari fleet discovered that their prey had teeth. Vexthor stepped forward. My people have learned this lesson at great cost to our pride. We assumed that because humans smiled in the face of threats, they were naive. We thought their entertainment was frivolous, not recognizing it as a vast experiment in problem-solving. We saw their apparent technological gaps as weaknesses, never considering they might be carefully crafted deceptions. And now, the Prime Speaker asked. Now, Sarah answered, we move forward together. Humanity emerges from the shadows not as the primitive species you thought you knew, but as we truly are, innovators, adapters, and when necessary, warriors. We offer friendship freely, but never mistake our openness for weakness. We've spent centuries preparing for every possible first contact scenario, including this one. As the council chamber erupted in discussion, Sarah turned to Vexthor. Your people's attempted invasion forced us to reveal ourselves ahead of schedule. In a way, we should thank you. The crystalline being's form shimmered with what might have been laughter. Somehow, I suspect this outcome was also part of your calculations. Sarah's eyes twinkled. Let's just say we had contingency plans for every scenario. Speaking of which, she gestured to the quantum display, which now showed a new series of technological schematics. Would you like to see what we've actually been working on, while you thought we were still struggling with basic spaceflight? As the delegates gathered around the display, the truth became clear. Humanity's greatest deception hadn't been hiding their technology. It had been hiding their potential. The species that had seemed so primitive, so vulnerable, had been quietly preparing to take their place among the stars. Not through conquest or subjugation, but through patience, innovation, and the uniquely human ability to smile in the face of overwhelming odds. The age of deception was over. The age of humanity had begun.